Okay, good. And welcome everybody. I'd like to jump right into the agenda. Now, the agenda that was posted online was a little off because I was down in North Carolina most of the week. I didn't have a computer. So Grace posted last month's agenda, which is virtually identical except for a few minor items. So the agenda that we're using is the one that I sent out to everyone a few days ago. I think on Thursday morning. Right, and so the first item on the agenda is to review the minutes of our July meeting. I sent out a copy of those yesterday, and I'll take up a few minutes if everyone wants to review them. It should be in your email. And if there's any comments or recommendations.
They looked okay to me.
Yeah, I think they're fine too. I looked at them earlier.
That's good.
Yeah, I read them, Mark. I didn't see any changes.
And Terry, you said, Gay sent me a note saying they look good to him.
And I wasn't there, so I'll abstain.
Okay. Right, so we'll let them go as is. Thank you. I suppose we should have, I think everyone's voted. And so we're okay to let them go. And I'll send those off to Grace. And so then item 2 on the agenda was item that Tracy wanted us to add. And that was boundary separations between the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee, or us, and the Lake Wyola Association. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to kind of explain the issue, the concerns.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and hi, Eric. I haven't met you yet. I'm Tracy.
Hi Tracy.
So I think I typed something up because I just thought it would be easier for me, but it also seems to make sense for me to just share it, just because it'll be easier for people to be able to read it rather than me try to go through it, or I can just read it out loud. I'm not 100% sure of my sharing ability.
And neither am I.
I've done it once.
Actually, I'm trying to get back to the meeting here.
Maybe you should just try reading it to us, Tracy, and see if that works for us.
Okay. While I'm on the document, do I disappear?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
You're still there right now.
All right. Okay. So, because I can't see any of you. So, yeah. So there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to bring this up. And, you know, and I think it's just an issue that affects a lot of people here at the lake. So anyway, I'll read it. I said, many people are confused over the difference between and the boundaries between LWAC and LWA. I've recently been brought into an LWA email chain that I felt blurred these lines and attended the 2 Lake Wyola Association annual meetings that also had those lines blurred, specifically in relationship to the restoration of North Cove and upstream remediation. In general, people are not clear as to what the function of LWAC is and what the function of LWA is, both in and outside of the Lake District. They do not know who to address issues with, basically what is a town issue and what is an LWA issue. And then I say, I think the main reason that lines are blurred may be the committee membership criteria. At the June LWAC meeting with Dave Green, when Dave was voted in as a new member for LWAC, Mark shared the membership criteria as established in 1991 when LWA was a social club and not a 501c3 public charity. The membership criteria on LWAC for people outside town committee representatives, fire chief, and dam keeper is listed as, quote, a minimum of 3 and maximum of 5 LWA members. There is a category for additional property owners who might have might lend technical support. There is no room for residents without these qualifications. I want to clarify that LWA is not a homeowners association. It's a public charity. There is no legal relationship between residents in the Lake District and LWA. Not all lake residents are LWA members. So if anybody has any questions or want to comment on that, I then have listed out some questions that I wanted to ask, but I'll just leave room for everybody to do that now.
I guess from my perspective, I'm still not clear as to the issue is, but maybe your questions will help clarify that.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to get into any kind of details of situations. It didn't seem to be worth doing that because it's just, you know, it's not going to it's not going to move things forward. So the questions I have is, what is the function of LWAC? And attached to that question is, why are all town committees represented on LWAC? It seems that it would be so they can bring concerns brought to LWAC back to their respective committees, thus the word advisory in the committee title. So what, you know, is that what's supposed to happen? Are people supposed to be able to send emails to LWAC and then it gets discussed at our meetings, and then the people that are on the committee that represent other committees, other town committees, supposed to bring it back to their committee, or you know, is that why they're on it, to be part of the, you know, giving sort of like a broad ability
maybe,
to discuss
maybe I
that
can-
meetings? Yeah.
Maybe I could ask John, since he's been on the committee and was there when during the on the committee when it was originally formed. Could you give us, John, a little bit of history?
Well, back in the 91, the planning board of the town tried to pass a bylaw, and the bylaw would limit property owners to 180 days of usage. And it was specifically directed at cottages that weren't full-time residences. And it became an issue between the town and the lake. And there was a lot of bad feeling at the time with the town from the lake. And a committee was formulated to a political committee that rallied around trying to beat the bylaw, and the bylaw was beaten back. But the basic premise of the committee was to try to formulate a committee of people, different people in the town, and get together and try to form a better relationship between the lake and the town. And it evolved over the years. We had the good fortune of having Bill Elliott come on the committee, and he did many things to get money for road repair, and he became involved when the state took over the park over there, and he was the chairman for a long time, and did a lot of things around grant writing, and was very helpful that way. And it kind of went out that way. There came a point in time where lake drawdowns needed to be done. And one of the things that we'd get deeply involved with was doing the paperwork with the state to do the drawdowns. It seemed like the Concom really didn't want to do that too much. So we kind of assumed that responsibility to do the paperwork, to do drawdowns. And over the years, there was a number of drawdowns that were done. There was a drawdown done at the time that the dam repair was initiated and completed. And you know, we haven't had a drawdown in quite a while now. But that's basically it. Liaison between the town and the lake, if issues came up at the lake.
So John, I have a question. Why did the town want to limit the, I guess, the roads open for just 180 days, which is what first of all, what were those 180 days? And second of all, why?
Why don't you talk to your neighbor, Walter Tirati? He was on the planning board at the time. They're the ones that formulated this thing and tried to shove it down our throats. I don't I don't understand the logic between limiting property owners to 180 days. I didn't understand it then, and I don't understand it now. But that's what they tried to do. If you had a house here that was not a full-time residence, they wanted to, and there was no implementation about how they were going to try to monitor this. They just tried to pass it. Tom Williams was on the board. Walter Torati was on the board, and when it came through the planning board.
So I'm guessing there were already full-time residents here that were going to be.
There was some, yes. Yeah,
This
there
is-
were.
This is a good discussion, but I think it's not germane to the subject.
Right, yeah.
So if
that's
I
the
want to
point.
summarize what John is saying, I think is that the idea behind the advisory committee is that it's a liaison. So they get officials in the town talking with Lake residents and to address issues before they got to a vote a town meeting to limit or change access to level 2.
Okay, so I've had this happen, over the last several years.
It's frozen.
What?
I know. My internet connection just froze up for a second.
Oh, okay. So is it fair to say that any issues or concerns that residents have over here should be filtered through LWAC? And if so, how is the rest of the committee supposed to see those or know about them? Because I've had people say that they've sent things to LWAC and they don't get any response. Or if they do, they're sometimes told that this isn't an LWAC issue. And people are not clear about what are LWAC issues. And therefore, it combines with the lack of clarity between what would be LWAC, what would be LWA. People are even confused about the fact that LWAC is a town committee. Many people think that it's like a surrogate of LWA.
I believe that I've used our scope, which is on our website, our webpage, as sort of a guide as to what's involved with us and what's not involved with us. And so, whenever someone has asked me that question, I've expressed it that way. For example, LWAC is not involved with people's boundary lines issues and property lines, which is sometimes comes up that that we're supposed to. We're supposed to regulate property lines. We're also not the police. We don't enforce boating regulations. So it's really, I would fall back on our scope, and that's what I tend to do when someone's asked me, is this an LREC issue, and not or not.
I mean, my view would be that people should talk to the LWA, and that LWA then would elevate the issue if they thought it was important enough to an LWAC issue where the town would, and that all the committees in town would try to work something out. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Well, LWA is not a homeowners association, so why would people go to LWA? LWA is supposed to be a public charity that is supposed to be about the environment. I mean, it's not
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a
All right.
So therein lies the problem. The people that live over here, they don't have necessarily any kind of power over anything. There's no road maintenance agreement. They don't have power over maintenance of the roads. They can or cannot become a member of LWA, but that doesn't give them any kind of power over any kind of issues here with what LWA is doing or not doing. And so there is no recourse for residents, and many residents have gone, they've gone to LWAC thinking that must be the recourse, and doesn't seem to always be the case with issues that do meet the criteria on the website. So I think that we might need to establish a little more concrete what LWAC is, and because it sounds to me like it was set up as a, barring the whole, shutdown of the lake during the winter. It sounds like it was originally set up as a way for residents over here to communicate grievances or issues with the town to get, some sort of um, some sort of a way to solve issues.
Well, the incorporation of LWA, does that prevent it from being a homeowners association? It seems to me a homeowners association at the lake would make a lot of sense. That's all, because
Yeah. It's never been a homeowners association, Eric. It used to file as a fraternal order. It was really predominantly a social club, is my understanding, and according to its original articles of incorporation, it was a social club. It became a 501c3 in 2007, before I came here. There's no deed covenant, there's nothing in anybody's deeds, and there's no established agreement between LWA, who does own the roads, and the residents. Now that it's a 501c3, that becomes even grayer, because like a road maintenance agreement would be between the association and the residents, having, if it was in their deed, means that both are responsible for maintenance of the roads. And in this case now, that line is very, very blurred. So, and that's just roads. So really the residents over here are town residents of the town before they're anything connected to LWA. And people who have moved here post 2007, it's very confusing. I mean, because you don't know that the roads aren't maintained by the town, because there's nothing to flag your attorney, when you're going through your mortgage process. But because it's not a homeowners association, as you suggest, there's no recourse for anything.
Tracy, at the time that LWAC was formed, my sense of things was that the lake community considered themselves quite separate from the town. They almost didn't consider themselves town residents or town owners, town property owners. And so part of what LWAC was aiming at was better communication and a feeling of sort of bringing lake people into the town community. I've been talking sort of informally with Becky about, and this is feeding into one of our other agenda items, about the establishment of a road runoff committee. And Becky said, and Becky has, if you don't mind my digressing on this for a little bit, she is actually trying to figure out some way that the town and the lake area can collaborate on this without being legally iffy. And she said something that really struck me, that having looked back at our original charter, she felt that the committee that should be looking at these questions basically already exists, and it's this committee. And she was talking about the way Bill Elliott was basically taking the lead on these things, writing the grants, organizing the people, and doing whatever. And she feels that a proper function of LWAC would be to convene such meetings between interested parties, including some other town departments, and try to get some progress on these issues. And so there's that. I think that maybe, I mean, obviously there's confusion at LWA about who they're going to be, but there may be some confusion here at LWAC about who we're going to be. So it's a big question you're raising there.
I'm trying to get back to you, but can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
I've lost my ability to see anybody, I think. I was just, oh well.
Oh dear.
Oh no, there you are. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Well, and I think I'm just gonna I had one more question, and I think, yeah, I thought it might relate to what Catherine was just saying, but it doesn't. But Catherine, that sounds really reasonable to me. And I think that, when Bill Elliott, my understanding is that Bill Elliott was responsible for getting the 2007 stormwater study done. And also I heard that he also facilitated getting grants. The other thing that I've heard from several people, including one who was part of the original conversion to the 501c3. And I know Mark and Dave, both of you were, because I know you're signers on the restated article of organization, that it was recommended by Bill Elliott to become a 501c3, specifically to have access for LWA to become a 501c3, specifically for them to have access to grant monies. And I'm guessing at the time, he assumed that he was going to be around to help with that because I understand he worked for, was it DCR or DEP?
He didn't work for either.
No, in his past, I thought he had.
No, never.
Oh, okay. I'm wrong about that.
He was never a state employee.
Okay. But anyway, that, you know, that is something that LWA as a 501c3 public charity has access to grant monies because of that status. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if this has any bearing on anything, but the town assessor, under the criteria that he's given to give like tax exemption, I guess LWA does not meet the criteria of a public charity. But I don't know if that would affect their grant, you know, applying for grants. It may not have anything to do.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, you know, that we might want to start talking more about how that collaboration can happen more, because, and I'm going to jump to something that is on my question list, and what was one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring this up is this lake restoration and upstream remediation project. Is so, you know, when this project was established, were there shared responsibilities established between LWAC and the LWA Lake Restoration Committee, or are they operating separately? And yeah, well, I'll just stick with that question first, because there's definitely some confusion there with I've even been brought into discussions, and I'm even on the Lake Restoration Committee. My understanding is that they have not been meeting, didn't meet this year and didn't meet last. But since we had decided to go to the remediation part of it and kind of drop the other piece, it's as if like LWA is now just sort of piggybacking off of what LWAC is doing, but there's nobody really doing anything in LWA. So I'm confused about why they're not at the table with us. And I'm also confused about why they're not at the table with the Stormwater Committee meeting with the town, like as a primary, not as LWAC being the primary. It should be, seems like it should be both.
Maybe I could address that. For the lake restoration, I've been part of both committees, Tracy. So they have been represented on both committees. The restoration committee hasn't met for several years because it was going nowhere. There is no leadership among lake residents, and I wasn't willing to take the leadership of that project.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So while I did get engineering companies to quote the design study, and a number of us worked on the scope of that design, it's until there's some leadership someplace among stakeholders, it wasn't going anywhere. And I was perfectly comfortable letting that die because of lack of leadership. Now that this committee decided that they want to pursue the upstream remediation part, we're again looking for leadership to investigate that. And Dave did volunteer to contact someone at the NASTA Division of Ecological Restoration to see if they could provide some assistance. But again, it's a leadership thing, and it's to get things going. And not only technical leadership, but also funding leadership. Someone to create raise funds for these projects.
Okay. Well, and I just think, Mark, as an aside, I think you might want to take a look at the LWA minutes because for the annual meetings, because they definitely have LWAC and Lake Restoration Committee confused. It's as if LWAC is the Lake Restoration Committee. And there is some issues people have with the fact that there's a good chunk of money of LWAs that's been set aside for this project. And it's been set aside for quite some time, and LWA doesn't seem to actually be participating in the project. So I think that we should really pull them into this, not just have it be LWAC, especially if you want LWA money.
I can only say, Stacey, that all stakeholders have been involved throughout the entire process, including the Conservation Commission, the Select Board, the LWA, and I've kept everybody informed as to what's going on.
Yeah, well, I know you have. I've heard you do that.
And so I'm not sure what to do next.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like from what Catherine said that there is movement that we might be hearing something. Catherine, I don't
know. I mean, it's a question been raised, but it seems like everybody is just spinning their wheels here, and we're not making any progress. Excuse me, Miriam, could you possibly mute? There's weird sounds that I think are coming from your computer. Much better, thank you.
Yes, and I agree with you, Catherine, and I can see that I've digressed as well. But I just this issue for me was brought to the forefront recently with this Lake Restoration Committee thing in LWAC and LWA. It just became very pronounced to me. So I think that it might be a good idea that we have some sort of a blurb on the town website under LWAC clarifying that LWAC is not representing LWA, that they're separate entities. I mean, it's just think about the confusion with LWAC and LWA.
But it seems to me the basic question is sort of like a real practical question. Like, let's say you have you live down around Lake Wyola and you have trouble with a road. Who do you complain to? Who do you ask? I mean, you
can complain to LWA, but you don't have any power. I mean, that's the problem.
Right. So my question would be, shouldn't you have power? Shouldn't there be it comes down to the question of shouldn't there be a homeowners association that the homeowners can go to deal with things that are more than just a fraternal organization, as you called it earlier? I'm just asking.
Yeah, it used to be for fraternal order and like a social club, but then it never was a homeowners association. Then it became a 501c3 charitable organization. You can't, a charitable organization cannot just dissolve and turn into a homeowners association, because once they become a 501c3, they cannot dissolve without turning their properties over to another 501c3. So it's a done deal. It's over. And
can a homeowners association be a 501c3? You're saying it can't?
No, it can't. It's a different category under 501c categories.
Okay.
I believe this has all been looked into too.
Yeah.
All really good questions, and it's frustrating.
Yeah,
it always comes back to no.
Right, and usually those homeowners associations, when you buy into it, then you have to buy into a whole contract with them, and you have annual dues that you have to pay, and none of that can be instituted ex post facto. No. Right, it's too late. No. It could have happened back at the beginning, perhaps, but it can't happen now.
And as a matter of fact, the IRS made LWA a 501c3 retroactive back to its inception.
Oh, interesting.
That would be a done deal. Based on
so coming back to my question, what do you do if you're a homeowner and the road's all screwed up? I mean, you call LWAC, who really, it's a town organization who has no power over the road because it doesn't own the road, and you can't call the LWA because they're a 501c3. Who do you call? Nobody? You just
actually, Eric, I can address that. If it's the association owns the roads, and if you have a complaint about the roads, you talk to the association. Just as if you had a complaint about the town road outside your house. You
Sure.
call town. Now, you don't have
Okay.
you have no power over that, and you're dependent upon the owner of the road, the town or the association.
Right.
And so there's really no difference. I mean, it's
Okay. That's,
you
I
go-
guess
you
that's
go to
my
the people
question.
who are the owners, I believe, or responsible parties.
Okay.
And what I tend to do is just direct them in the right place. And they may not be satisfied with the answers that they get from the owners, but that's, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right. But that answers some of Tracy's first questions about where do you go? I mean, like, so it seems to me that's a big part of the whole question here.
And I think if anyone comes to any of us on the committee, we would give them guidance as to where to go. And if you weren't sure, you would you just check with other people and say, well, I have this problem. Where would I go? And eventually you'll get to the right answer.
Yes, but the problem is that there is no established legal responsibility of LWA to take care of the roads at any level.
Okay.
But Tracy, that's not our problem.
Right. Well, this
We
is
can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that I think could be established is that the town has a bylaw, because there is no bylaw. There's been talk over here that there's a bylaw that that lake residents are responsible for the roads themselves, which there is not. But there is a town bylaw that establishes that people who have shared driveways, which are clearly two private entities, have to have a road maintenance agreement. It seems to me there might be some room for a road maintenance agreement to be required by the town of LWA. So there's at least a baseline of maintenance as opposed to just, because, we're over here with people who are year-round residents and summer residents, and the LWA is dominated because it began as a summer residents organization by summer residents. But the people who live here year-round, who are dealing with roads issues that happen through the seasons where the roads issues are bigger, fall, winter, and spring, are not represented and don't seem to be able to get very good representation. So,
Okay, so
so that's
Go ahead.
that's something that I feel like LWAC could take on and discuss, because this is a lake, residents issue. And if it just keeps getting thrown back to LWA, it just means it's a circular conversation. So if that's what LWAC feels is, where they stand on it and don't want to pursue anything, then, the specific roads issue, it sounds like a non-issue for LWAC. And I think that, we should maybe discuss if that's something that they want to pursue. Because residents have a right.
I wouldn't think LWAC would want to pursue that. That's what I mean. That's the whole issue of dividing the two operations, the town and the. I mean, they're not the town's roads. Why would the town have anything to say about them? Really?
I totally
You know what I'm saying?
agree with you. I don't think we should go there.
Okay.
I don't think that the town should go there. I mean, I don't think LWAC should discuss it, and I'm not even sure that the town could compel the association to have a maintenance agreement.
Yeah.
I don't think it could.
Yeah, don't know. It's definitely a gray area, and it's a big frustration over here.
Yes.
Okay.
all right. And we move on. I'm not sure what I'm going to put for the minutes here of the meeting for this discussion. Yeah.
Well, you recorded it, so you can.
Well, I mean, but I still have to write something up, Tracy.
Right.
It's we were 37 minutes into this thing now, so.
Perhaps what we could have in the minutes is that this is a topic sort of defining the responsibilities and roles of LWAC as a topic for a future meeting.
Yeah, in relationship to residents of the Lake District.
And just in general.
Or in general, okay.
Or both.
Okay, what I can certainly do is add that to the agenda item for next time, and we'll take a look at what's the scope of the committee, and we'll see if we want to modify it.
Good.
Okay, thank you. thank you for that discussion. Okay, so item 3 on the agenda now is our roads. There's a stormwater runoff committee. Just to kind of summarize what's happened in the past, I think everyone kind of knows, but it's that where, LWOC doesn't, or at least I don't feel that we have the expertise to pursue grants and pursue funding from outside sources as a town committee. And so the issue is that there is water that starts on town roads, goes over association roads, picks up contaminants and silt and dumps it into Lake Wyola. And so while the roads are owned by LWAC, just a minute, Marion. I think, was that a question, Marion? Are you, okay.
Yeah, I'm in my car. So for folks who don't know, I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. There was some discussion at our last meeting. There are grants available. And I guess one of the questions I'd like LWAC to discuss is whether we could work collaboratively with you. We have some folks on our commission who are, wetland scientists and are familiar with the grant programs that through DEP. And I wonder if that could be a way in which the town through the Conservation Commission could collaborate in helping LWAC and LWA get grants.
I think that would be great.
Miriam, thank you. These 2 things may be the answer because all the other avenues seem to be dead ends.
I mean, I understand all the dead ends, but I understand the town is not taking responsibility for these resolutions, but it seems like we could assist, and that we should assist, is my opinion. But maybe that would be a discussion to be taken up at a joint meeting with LWAC and the Conservation Commission.
I was told by Becky that this subject will be on the select board agenda for the 31st, August 31st, although I haven't seen it yet.
Well, I'll plan to be there for that, and perhaps some other commissioners will be as well. But that would be my suggestion, is that we try to help with grant writing.
Miriam, I was going to ask Miriam, do you have specific information about specific grants at this time?
I'm driving, I don't have it in front of me, but there are some Mass DP grants that are administered through FERCog. I can email you the information.
Yes, if you can send us links or emails or whatever about that, so we can sort of get a sense of what the possibilities are before that select board meeting. I think that would be really helpful.
Who do I send it to?
Why don't you send it to Mark, and Mark can distribute it to all of us? Is that okay, Mark?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll see what I can dig up for you.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna sign off. So.
Okay, Miriam, can you hold on one more second? Because I have something to say that would impact you.
Are you guys talking about the culvert project? Or you've already done that?
No, about grants, what you were just speaking of grants. So I did some research 2 years ago on grants for roads in relationship to environmental, because that had to be sort of the criteria, it looks like, for LWA. And I also have bookmarked a whole, I think like 15. So maybe what I could do is I could send those links to you, Miriam, and if they, if they're the same as the ones you have, that we, no point in having double it up, but I could send that to you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, sounds great. And if we want to have a conversation, you can give me a call.
Okay, where would I find your contact information?
Just email me at defont.shutesbury@gmail.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, so I think now this is really what the goal of this committee was, to get other committees in the town involved who have technical expertise, and the town administrator may be involved, and just people just broaden our expertise and to see what's out there and see what's available. So that was the whole goal here of our 2 letters to the select board. So my question that I have is, if we, assuming we're going to be on a select board meeting agenda, does anybody want to kind of summarize and take an initial overview of the issue to explain to the select board? If no one,
I'm willing to do that, Mark.
is that you, Dave? Yeah, you
We can't
volunteer?
really hear you.
Really? I'll get to my computer. I said I'd be willing to do that.
Okay, that'd be great, Dave. And then we're all going to be there and to provide any details, any additional details. But that'd be great.
I just want to step on Tracy's toes. I mean, she seems very passionate and knowledgeable about this issue. So I wanted to give her first shot, I guess.
So maybe, Dave, what we could do is we could meet together and talk about the best way to approach. I'd be glad to do that. I think that we have to be, this is my biggest concern, Mark. It's that it looks like the select board's initial saying no to even having this meeting was their concern that we were asking them to take over maintenance of the roads, which is understandable because I think that's happened in the past. I mean, I hear so many things about past history, but that seems to be a bone of contention. So I don't know, do we, I mean, clearly the lake is the biggest stormwater runoff place. So it seems kind of silly to try to force in other areas unless there are some, because we originally talked about this as needing to be a townwide stormwater issue, a committee to talk about, so what do we do with that? Because I don't want it to end up looking all disjointed, because LWA's, you invited LWA, all the membership to come, and we don't know how many people are going to come from there who are probably just going to focus on the lake. What do we do with that? What did you tell them?
It is my understanding that there are stormwater runoff issues at other places in town.
Okay.
And that through there was a fund, a project that got started, I forgot what it was called, Community Resiliency Plan, that had funding available. And so the original thought from this committee was, let's try to address the town in general in all the areas and not just the lake.
Right.
And involve, the Concom and the Highway Department, who has resources to correct things, and really make this a town-wide activity. But that's not a requirement. It was just a thought at the time.
Right, and they're not
I
buying
think
it, so we might as
They're
well
not
let it
buying
go.
it, Catherine says. Yeah.
Well, but the discussion, and Eric could chime in, at the select board was to invite all these members for a discussion on how we could set up a committee to set up whatever on how to address these issues, and that people could talk a little bit about that. And when I say everybody, that means the town, the COMCOM, LWA and LWAC, to, instead of everybody doing their own thing, is there a way to coordinate the efforts? I think that was the request from the select board, was to hear those issues.
I mean, I can speak for the select board in the sense that there's so much on our agendas. It has to be concise and so forth. I mean, I know the issue, and I'm sort of jumping in the middle of this, but I know the issue in the past has simply been the question of how much the town can legally do to deal with private roads. That has been the question. And the town council has basically said, you can't do anything. That's my understanding of it. So where that puts us, I don't know, but I think maybe that's what Catherine was saying earlier. Is that right? That it's not that we don't buy it, but that you can't do it.
Right, you can't really use any town resources for private purposes. And that's why Becky is suggesting that the committee that undertakes these things should be this committee, and that we could convene, if we don't have the expertise, that we could invite others to, I mean, we could have a subcommittee or whatever, invite others to come and address us and try to work with us. And that would kind of obviate this whole question of whether or not we can have a stormwater runoff committee, because essentially we would become the stormwater runoff committee as a sort of clearinghouse for all the information and help that we can get.
But the
Mark-
next step will obviously be spending money to fix the problem. And how do you
Right,
do that?
well, the first
I
step
mean, if-
before that would be getting money to spend, and that would
Right.
be the grant writing part of it. And that really,
Right.
I think, is what has to come next. We can't solve any problems until we get money.
Actually, I think it's a step before there, and that is to define the problem and come up with a design for a solution. And so,
Right, but that also is gonna take money because we're
That's
gonna
right.
need money for engineering studies.
right, and so that was the idea of
Mark?
grant money to define and what needs to be done. And then depending upon what needs to be done, it would depend upon who's responsible for that particular component.
I think Dave's trying to talk, but Dave, you're really muted.
Yeah, I can't understand. I don't know why. I'll try to get closer. I'm confused by something. And I'm sure you guys have discussed it while I've been away. What is wrong with the Locks Pond Road, Lake Wyola stormwater study that was done in 2007? It seems that we're trying to get all these questions answered. And I read through this document recently, and it's right in front of us. Was this?
Yes, yes, Dave, I'm on board with you there.
So we have it already. We have it. It was done by DCR. It was prepared by Scott Campbell. It was done through conjunction with the LWA, and the town, by the way. So there was coordination between the two. It has measurements and suggested improvements. It's very detailed. Has anybody read this recently?
I have, I've read it.
So where can we access that to?
I have not, so I'd
I
love to
sent
see a
you a
copy.
copy, but
I
I'll
have
get to you.
multiple copies of this, Mary, at the house because I have everything. I save everything. And,
Okay,
I can bring you over a copy later. This is a
Okay.
study, and I think that, and I revert to this because Mark had sent me a lot of information about all the work he had done. It's a lot.
Could you, excuse me, this is Miriam just jotting in here. Could you send me a copy of it?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say, and I'm going to keep it short, is that I'm clearly going to volunteer to help with this issue. But my first approach is to understand everything that was done in the past before. And
Good-
so we're
good
not just
idea.
treading water and redoing what we have already done. And I've heard a lot of that in this meeting today, by the way. I think looking back is probably not the best direction in some areas. In this case, it is. So I would urge everyone to read this document, and then I think we should proceed from here.
Right.
Why redo the wheel? And as far as taking on this issue, no, I don't think we need another committee in town. I LWAC issue. This is what this committee is for, Tracy. I think in what you're talking about,
Yeah.
issues like this. And yes, I'll volunteer to write the grant. I think if we can all get on board with what's in front of us and say yay or nay about this document, I think that might be the first place to start.
So Dave, and I just would like to interject here in regards to that 2007 stormwater study. One of the things that we requested, a group of us requested from LWA, is to utilize that stormwater study and have Scott Campbell come back and update it, because there was concern that there may be some changes that happened that might make recommendations different. It doesn't look like to me and to several of us that would actually be anything significant. But I know that Jennifer Wallace has contacted directly Scott Campbell. I think that's a really perfect place to start. I'm in complete agreement. I've been trying to get that document revised with LWA for 3 years now. So I think as LWAC, we might be able to do that. It's a really detailed study specific to us.
Okay,
As far as what I want to revert back to Mark as well. I think leadership is a key issue here, and I think it has been lacking. And I know Mark, man, put his heart and soul into some of this stuff, and that's kind of why I'm willing to take some of this on. And so let's read this document. Let's all get on the same page, updated or not. I think it's a great starting point.
Let's start.
It's
Yep.
a great document to reference and refer to. And and it was what I was going to kind of talk about and refer to if we spoke to the town at the select board. I think it's something that is clearly can be, it's right up their alley. I mean, this is what they're looking for. You know, what's the plan? Well, here it is. It's right in black and white.
Okay, let me jump in here. There's a couple of problems with that stormwater runoff study. One is it only deals with one part of the lake.
That's true.
It doesn't deal with the other two sides of the lake.
Not correct.
And so that it needs to be expanded to deal with those issues. The second issue is it's not in my mind detailed enough to take any actionable plans. It's like, when you talk about putting a retention basin in, it's like, well, where and what size and what's dimensions, and there's a design has to go with that. This is like a cookbook. No, what's a cookbook? A recipe, but not the final product. And that's while it's a good recipe, someone has to put the ingredients together with the specifics to make it happen. So that's a good starting point, Dave, but it's not detailed enough and doesn't cover the whole lake. And so while I agree it's a starting point, it really needs to have much more depth.
So
Well,
there's one other area.
Suggested, so I can pursue that as well. But it's a starting point. It's something, and I agree it doesn't include the other parts of the lake, but it seemed pretty detailed to me, Mark. I don't know. I
Even
guess
has
it's
diagrams
on this issue, but it seemed quite detailed.
So there's one other report that I think might be helpful, and Mary, you can probably, and Miriam can address this. Mary, I provided you with a little disk drive, or those little things you plug in your computer that Mark gave me last year that has that other study that was done by a member of Conservation Committee that shows about stormwater runoff issues as part of that study. So I feel like that would be a second piece. Because, and the other thing is that I did find something that shows that towns can help with private roads. There's a way that it can be done. I gotta try to find it, bookmarked it somewhere. But the other thing that I think is the avenue inwards to be able to collaborate with the town, and then perhaps monies from different committees like the Community Preservation Committee that was going to give 10 grand for the lake restoration. I think it's impacting the lake. The silt runoff, I believe, is the issue. The contaminants in the silt runoff into the lake, they travel through the roads. There's no way around that. So it's sort of like the town is helping, because LWA can't handle it all. The town is helping take care of the roads that are contaminating their lake. I feel like that's an avenue in, and I feel like we should be pursuing more. And I think the 2007 stormwater study is really kind of an example of that.
And I think this is a great study, and I do believe it's limited. And Tracy, also the scope of what any municipality can do in this situation is also limited.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to happen. There's only so much that humanity can do to control, which is always going to happen with any lake, which is the eutrophic process. The town could do so much, and then you're going to have a situation like tomorrow where there's nothing that the town could do when you have a rain situation like that. And we have to step back and put this into perspective a little bit. There's only so much that can be done, and I think that's part of the reason why it hasn't been tackled, because it's such a massive issue that I think there's limits of what can happen here, and I'm not going to downplay the issue, but there's only so much that, I'm sorry, that can be done.
And I'm in agreement with you there. And I also just want to clarify that I wasn't saying that the town should. I'm not a person who believes that the town should be taking on responsibility for the roads. I'm just talking about a way to be able to facilitate a collaboration that doesn't violate laws or rules, and that we can get people to work together. Because clearly the starting point is getting some collaboration and ways that these can work together. And I do believe it is the contamination of the lake through the silt and stormwater runoff, which is where we started.
All right, well,
Can I-
I've
can I
added
ask a
all I can,
question?
so.
Uh,
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
This is Miriam. Tracy, I think that was you talking. Could you send,
Can't hear you, Miriam. I think she's gone.
Miriam, you were asking Tracy to send you something?
yes, I'm trying. I'm having some problems with my phone. Can you hear me? Hello,
Yeah.
hello?
Faintly.
Yep.
Can I ask a question while Miriam's trying to figure it out there? Do digital copies exist of these of this document in particular? I mean, is there a way we can just put it on our whatever? We can share it amongst ourselves
I can
without.
scan it for you, Eric.
Okay, that'd be great. Because I mean, I'd like to share it with the. I mean, before we meet with the select board, I'd like to make sure that everybody gets to read it. So at least we're all on the same page when we walk into the room. You know what I mean?
But yeah, also share Mark's caveat that it's not, I would add Mark's concerns as you share the document to the.
Sure, I get you.
That should be duly noted.
There's a hard copy at town hall, Eric. I could make copies and put them in the select board box.
That would be awesome. That'd be great. Thanks so much. That'd be good.
So if I could just step in and say that I've already got it scanned in and easily accessible.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
I've got several, I've got a lot of things that are already, ready to go. So I'll send that. Mark, I mean, maybe we should have a central location so the select board's not getting things from all different locations. I'll send so we're talking about that document, and I believe, so Mark, just because you are the one who gave me that little drive thing that had
Thumb
that
drive.
Yeah, thumb drive. Thank you. That study that somebody on the Conservation Commission did, the study that that had it came out in 2019. Do you remember do you know what I'm talking about, Mark?
Miriam, can you hear me now?
Yeah, because
Can you
I
hear
gave
me?
Mary a copy of that. I gave Mary that thumb drive. So that's also like, I think it's just too big of a document to put on somebody's laptop or transmit. Is that why you had to give it to me on a thumb drive, Mark? Like, I don't know, we can upload it.
Well, let's, I'll answer quickly, then we're going to jump back to Miriam, but she was
Oh, okay.
talking. But I put it on a thumb drive because in totality, the documents I gave you were too big to email.
Yeah, okay.
But so let's go back to Miriam, but she was speaking.
They should be able to, if you attach the documents in Gmail, they'll be uploaded as links in Google Drive. So even though they're large, you should be able to email them.
Yeah. And maybe this was a few years ago when I gave Tracy those documents. So maybe something's changed, or maybe our internet connections have changed. Before we were on, we didn't have really
because my computer can't do it. I think it makes more sense for Mary to give that thumb drive to Miriam.
Okay.
Because Mary's
We'll
got the
figure
thumb
that out.
drive with it on it, and then Miriam, maybe you can figure out what to do with it.
I'll do. Okay, I'll take care of it. I'll get it from Mary. I'm gonna sign
Mary, you
off
still got that thumb drive?
Hope so. I'll look in my box here. But yes, it whatever. A lot of the things you gave me, I couldn't open up or I couldn't do things with them because they were too large. So there is some problems with doing that, but I'll pull the thumb drive.
There's ways to shrink the memory size of PDFs to make them more manageable. So I'll take a look at that.
Okay.
And
Right, so-
Eric, did I send the 2007 stormwater study to you? I mean, I'll send it to all of LWAC, but should I send it specifically to you, Eric? And
But if you send it to all of LWAC, I think I
that's
would get
Well,
that email.
yeah,
And
I don't. Yeah, I'll send it to a link that has you in it. Okay.
great, that'd be pretty great. And I'll pass it on. I'll read it and pass it on. I'll pass that document on to the select. I'll just put it in the select board email and share it with everybody.
Okay, so where we are right now, is that Dave and Tracy, and I'd also like to help out. We'll kind of create a quick summary for the select board meeting, just to kind of focus the discussion, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
would it be inappropriate for us to meet together because that's considered like violating meeting laws, or because that seems to me to be a better way to, I mean, I don't know what to do there.
If you're not a quorum, you can meet.
Oh, okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay, so we can meet.
Okay.
This we're under 4. And okay, so let's assume we're going to do that. All right. Well, okay, kind of going a little over time here, but that's okay. If you guys are all willing to, can we move on to item 3 on the agenda? And
I'm going to step away for a minute because I have to go get my charger.
okay, yeah, I'm going to continue on. So item 3 was the issue of the culvert, the culvert repair. Becky gave me an update that things are going a little slower than they originally expected, but they're hoping to start to sometime beginning of September. The only big change from what I understand was originally the thought was that the road would be closed for a week, and now they're talking about 3.5 weeks for the road closure. And Becky said that she'll send out townwide announcements when she gets more information. And that's about what I know.
So this is an update. They'll be talking about this at the next COMCOM meeting to go over their rewatering plan and timeline, and which has been also extended because there's been some issues with them getting all the pieces of construction that they needed to get done, but it will be on the COMCOM agenda at the next meeting.
Great, excellent. So the other thing on that item 3 was the discussion about the dam valve repair. And since Walter's not here, I don't think anything really, I can't give you any updates of what's going on with the dam. But I do know that the dam needs to have an inspection this fall. Although I don't believe we've got the report from their last inspection, which was 2 years ago. So I don't really have anything else to add about what's going on with the dam. If anybody else knows, I think feel free to jump in. Okay. Can we move on to item 4?
Please.
Okay, so that was which we already kind of talked about a lot, was the idea of doing some upstream irradiation to reduce the amount of silt coming into the lake from upstream. We had got, Terry had provided some contact information at the Mass Department of Environmental Reconstruction, I forgot what the word is, I'm not sure if Dave had a chance to talk to anybody there yet. I'll turn it over to Dave.
Gotten the email from her yet, from Terry. I did leave a message. I haven't heard back. I'm assuming she's probably on vacation, like a lot of people are right now. But I'd rather have the email because a lot of people respond to their emails when they're away from the office. So I'm going to have to pester him for that.
Okay, so we'll just have an ongoing item, and hopefully we can get some technical expertise from them. If you need any help, Dave, feel free to pull me into it.
Well, you gave me a lot of stuff to read. So as I said, I have been going through that and kind of highlighting and taking notes because I kind of want to know what the hell I'm talking about before I speak to this person. You know what I'm saying? Have a good grasp of the background, so I'm just not spinning my wheels. And I feel I might get more treadway that way. So yeah, I mean, obviously this is not going to happen overnight, as you know, as you spent years on this. So, but I'm doing stuff.
And I just wanted to bring up I was at the June meeting, but not the July meeting. But I didn't see any reference to this in the July minutes. We had discussed at the June meeting that it would make sense to have our CONSCOM representative, Mary, talked to the Wendell Conscom because this was going to require cooperation with Wendell. But then Mark, you said at the last LWA meeting that wasn't necessarily an established fact, that we would need to coordinate with Wendell. So
that is correct.
Okay.
The issue is, if there's a design of a project that stays within the Shutesbury boundaries, then we don't necessarily have to have Wendell involved. We would certainly get them involved and keep them up to date on what we're doing as a matter of courtesy, but it wouldn't necessarily be a requirement. However, if the design of a retention basin or whatever it is was moved farther upstream, then we would need Wendell involved.
Okay.
So we won't know that till we have some technical expertise to say, well, what should we be doing?
Okay, and clearly it'll be easier to do if we don't need to coordinate with another town. So, okay.
I'm not sure if let's assume that's the case. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just keep chugging along this area. Item 5, the boat ramp restoration. We've been trying to push for this for a couple of years, and it seemed to have gone nowhere. Eric came on board, and I think Eric maybe taking a look at it, and the idea of creating a land management agreement with the Department of Fish and Boating Access or something like that. Eric, did you have a chance to take a look at anything?
I mean, I've looked at it. We've not brought it up in the select board meetings yet. I know that. I was kind of waiting for all this to happen together, but I've looked at it. It seems like a reasonable idea to me, at least to investigate it. That's the extent that I can really say anything about it.
What should we as a committee be doing at this point?
I would say if we want it to happen, we should probably, write a letter to the select board that says very specifically what we want to happen and how to do it. I mean, what we want to do, I guess, because that is town-owned land, so I guess the town can do it, right?
Right.
Would anyone be willing to draft a letter?
I think I could do that.
If you draft it, I'll help review it, and then we'll review it again at the next committee meeting.
That makes sense to me.
Okay. Now, historically, Eric, just whenever I've sent something to a letter to the select board, I get no response. So I'll have to talk with you about what's.
Well, all I said was write a letter. I didn't say we do anything about it. Right.
But anything that helps out is always a good thing. Keep pushing along.
Well, as I said, I mean, from the select board's point of view, I know there's always that issue of like, this is the lake, this is the town, and the lawyers there, so you can't talk about that or whatever. It's like, so that's always, it sort of is this elephant in the room over all, that's part of every discussion at some level. I know that much.
But in this case, it's really a town property.
It is. I think this case is different, as I suggested. It is a town property, so. Great.
Okay. Good. And so Catherine drafts that. We'll take a look at it and hopefully finalize it. What I would actually ask everybody to do is we'll get a draft together, review it at the next committee meeting, and maybe finalize it at that point so we can move on. That would be a nice goal. Right?
I think that makes sense.
Since we've already established that we want to do this in this committee, we've been trying to move it forward forever. Do we really have to bring it back to committee, or can we just be empowered by the committee to write the letter and send it?
I would have no issue with that.
I don't have any issue with that.
I don't have any issue with that as long as it's okay. I thought since it's coming from LWAC, everybody had to approve it, but I'm totally comfortable drafting it up, sending everybody a copy of the draft, And for if you had any comments, send them back to me, and then we'll just send it right along.
That
And
sounds
when
good.
you say send it right along, you mean send, because ultimately the letter is going to come from the select board to the Department of Fisheries and whatever it is. I can't remember what it is either, but is that right? Am I right about that?
So I thought the letter was going to come from LWAC to the select board, and then the select
Right.
board would respond to the Department of Voting Access.
Right.
So-
But ultimately, in terms of requesting the assistance from the state, that's going to have to come from the select board or something.
That's correct. And there was
Right,
that,
okay.
that draft letter that they had sent us, like the select,
Right.
and so
Okay.
yeah, you're right, Eric. It's just a matter of so if no everyone is in agreement, Catherine will draft something, and I'll just put my input into it, and then once we get a kind of a final draft, we'll just send it to everybody on the committee and give you a couple of days to look at it, and then we'll incorporate those and send it off to the select board as soon as possible.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Last item, the recent the E. coli testing is looking good these days. I suspect we'll get a fail next week after this rainstorm.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so,
But we've only had one
yeah,
so far, so it's been good, actually. And in the past few weeks, it's been exemplary. And
yeah.
E. coli's been down in the single digits for weeks.
I did get an email from a town resident wanting to know if there is any real-time data available. Because right now, Catherine's been updating the LWAC website with the recent data, but it's a couple of days late. My response was that there is no real-time data available, and that but if you go down to the beach and there's a sign that says the beach is closed, it's closed, and that sign goes up very, as soon as we get a bad reading, the signs go up. And so,
Well, that's the thing. There's no such thing as real-time data because it takes time to get the results, to culture the results. So the tests are taken on Monday, and if we know by the end of the day on Tuesday, that's really pretty fast. So that's the best we can do. I've been putting them up quickly, but for real time, that just doesn't exist.
Right. And I just want to, I had promised to follow up on something that I forgot to tell you I did. I did follow up with Paul Lyon to see if he had any kind of a contact with the state so that we could try to get the state data. And he said that the only thing you can do is contact Charlton. I think that the place I think you've already contacted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and in the thing that's really kind of frustrating is that even the manager over at the beach, the DCR guy doesn't get it either. They don't know what the numbers are or what's, what the bacteria is that's causing them to have to put the red flag up.
But we know what the bacterium is, but we just don't know how much there is of it.
Well,
I don't think you were here last time.
I
I have not done this yet, but I said at the time that I'm going to write to Joe Comerford and ask her to attempt to make, I mean, not just for this beach, but for all the DCR beaches, to make that information a matter of public record in real time, not if you have to, send in a public records request and get the information 2 weeks later.
That's a good idea, because in talking to them, they told me that they only have to close the beach for E. coli, but they put the red flag up because the bacteria levels are considered to be too high for what is not very clear, and that they have to tell people to swim at their own risk. But I think, it seems to me that if the state beach is having that occur, that probably the homeowners that live a little bit out from there are having the same kind of bacteria. And I read online, and I'm not 100% sure that I'm clear on this, but it sounded like these bacteria can actually be like related to human feces or animal feces that is not E. coli, but probably still not very good. So it seems kind of like an important thing.
Right. The indicator organism that they use, unless they've changed it at the state beach and at all state beaches, freshwater and saltwater, is Enterococci. We tried really hard years ago to get them to test for E. coli and to be in in sync with all the other beaches here that we require E. coli. So I don't even know what the limit is for enterococci, but that's what they test for, as far as I know. Because they want consistency, you see, over the entire state. Instead of having consistency with all the freshwater beaches get one thing, all the saltwater beaches get another thing. No, they have to have all the beaches have the same thing.
Okay. So we'll see what we get, what happens next week's the test results and how long it lasts for. And like I said, I'll respond to the last email I got. It said that basically says, you know, if you want real-time data, walk down to the beach. And if there's a flag, if there's a sign, the beach is closed. If there's no sign, it's okay to go. Let's see.
Can I just interject there, which just maybe a way that you can alleviate that is to say what Catherine was saying, testing's done on Monday, results will not be, you know, earliest time would be Tuesday night. If you're concerned, wait till Wednesday to swim. I don't know, like letting them
Never swim on a Monday or a Tuesday.
yeah, letting him know when, because so if people are concerned about that window where there's a lack of knowledge because we can't do real time, then they can make a choice about, you know, knowing that, then I feel like it's totally covered.
Okay, fair enough. Good idea.
You know that's giving me a good idea, Tracy. On the website where we list the bacterial readings for the association beaches, maybe we should explain a little more about when beaches are tested, when we get the results, and so on.
Yes, and we did, I mean, at the last LWA meeting, I let them know that it was LWAC that was going to be posting it. But you know, there's a limited number of members there. So maybe what you could do is send it to the board, LWA board, and ask them to send out an email blast that lets everybody know, hey, you can go look here every week by Wednesday. And so that everybody at least that's on the membership list is aware of that too. Because there's no transmission of information from LWA to everybody about this unless they're prompted. I think they will.
Right.
If I think that's appropriate, if it's worthwhile, I can certainly do that. Actually, I've already done that. I've already sent it out to the board, to the LWA boards, letting them know that this site has that the LWAC site does have them.
Okay, so they're aware that the information is publicly available.
Yes,
that's just the board though, not the membership. So maybe you could ask them to do an email blast to the membership, because
I think the board, the LWA board should decide what they send out to the membership.
I'm saying asking them to, giving them an idea.
Sure, I'll say that I'll send a note off to the LWA board again, and say and just remind them and suggest that they send this out to everybody else. Okay, I'll take that on. I know Walter just jumped on a few minutes ago, and you're muted, Walter. But while you're here, is it okay if I ask you, put you on a spot for a minute, and ask you if there's any updates on the dam work or the dam inspection?
On the dam work or dam inspection, no, I'm not forward on that at all. I still have to call Morris and see, although I did take a walk down there and look around the other day, and yeah, there's evidence of some more of the mortar between some of the top stones and all that have loosened up and opened up some. So we definitely got to get him down here. He was supposed to call and come down at some point, but I guess I just, you know, I've been with a few other projects and all that, but I will get back on him and see if we can get down here and see what's going on.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Anything else? Any items that we didn't anticipate?
I don't know if you talked about the updates for the culvert work or not.
I just gave a little bit of information from Becky, that Becky provided for me, and
Okay.
Mary provides some information from Concom, but if you have some information, then
I probably don't have anything more than you do. Getting information has been kind of tough on this. The only thing I know is they are supposed to start mobilizing around September 7th or 8th to start bringing up their equipment. Then they would be setting up the detour signs and closing the road and starting the work. I've been told the road would be actually closed for 3.5 weeks, but if you look at their schedule that they set out, it looks closer to 8.5 weeks, and I want her to confirm that, but I haven't heard back. She's been on vacation this week, so it's totally up in the air as to exactly what's going on.
Hey, Mark.
So Walter, just as they are coming to the next COMCOM meeting to talk about the dewatering plan and some of these issues. So
Yep.
maybe we'll know more after that.
I just have a quick question. How far is the road going to be closed for? The beginning by the dam to how far?
Just right where the work is. The rest of the road from Locks Pond Road, from where they're doing the work, basically, I would say the end of Lake Drive. Or
Okay.
from there all the way back up is going to be open, but there'll be signs saying closed to through traffic because
Right.
you can't go through.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It just makes it hard for anybody that's, just on one side and wanting to get to just the other side. It's, it's a 5-mile round trip. So,
Yep.
or
I understand.
No.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Walter, is there going to be a detour sign at Wendell Road so people, I don't know,
Oh.
how's that going to work out? What?
there are like 20 some odd detour signs. They start coming up Cooleyville Road to let trucks know that they shouldn't go down Wendell Road. The trucks are being routed down Leverett to Shutesbury Road, in Leverett to the center of town, Montague Road to Cave Hill over to North Leverett back up.
Okay.
There's signs on both directions with arrows showing them how to go there. There's signs at the top of the hill. Well, there's signs from between the center of town and the junction of Wendell Road and Locks Pond. Again, warning, a mile ahead, the road's going to be closed.
Okay.
Sign saying road close to through traffic for the Locks Pond Road, and I think it's saying local traffic only on the each end of dirt section of Wendell Road. So there's signs all over the place. I've made some suggestions that signs that they should have there. I don't know if that's going to be entertained or not. So.
Well, the good thing is that the state beach won't be open, so we won't have a lot of out of town traffic coming down that way. I mean,
Right. That was one of Mark's concerns. He says, are they going to they should put special signs up for the people that are going to the lake? And I was like, well, no, they're not going to do that this late in the game. And the fact that, it's getting later in the season, they're probably not going to have that much traffic there. So.
okay, thank you, Walter. It was very good. It was a great update.
Okay.
Anything else for this meeting?
I would like to just mention this business about the shooting of the geese, something that I don't have any particular opinion about whether the geese are shot or not. But am I the last one in the world to find out that USDA was brought here and paid here by someone who did not in fact have authority to do that?
I don't know that.
yeah, I can say that at the LWA meeting, I did share that you told us that it was USDA. The concern was, this concern seems to me is how did USDA get told to come? What was also shared, which I found kind of odd, was that they come regularly, but the only reason that we knew they were there is because they didn't have a silencer for the gun, because the coronavirus has made shortages of certain supply chains, which silencer.
Well, that just shows that it's an ill wind that blows nobody good. What I have heard from I heard this from Becky, I was going to say a reliable source, but what Becky told me is that USDA was called in by a person who is named on the goose addling permit and who apparently used that to essentially impersonate a town official and call USDA in, because the way they do, they're guns for hire with this. You can call them in if you pay them, and apparently a collection was taken up. And as the person who signs the application for that permit, I am slightly pissed off. I'm really not happy about this whole thing. It's one thing to have them come in and shoot geese, and it's another one to exceed your authority by an order of magnitude.
Right. And the other concern was, and I thought it was a valid one, is that, there were some people that were concerned that it was like an active shooter situation going on. I mean, I thought it was fireworks. That was my assumption, but a lot of people knew the sound.
Yeah,
wanted
we
to
don't
know.
usually hear fireworks at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. It's unusual,
And,
but yeah.
and they're supposed to notify the police, so they left a message on the police line at like 6 o'clock that same morning, which is just totally unacceptable. I can't believe really that USDA was so stupid as to not follow up on this and determine that the person who engaged them to come had or did not have, as he did not have authority to do it. He's got no authority to undertake any kind of action on the lake that he doesn't own.
Becky did ask me if that was if shooting was allowed under the Adeline permit, and I sent them copies of the Adeline permit and said it's absolutely not.
He's the only thing that Adeline permit allows is addling.
That's right, oiling the eggs. All right, so Catherine, what do you think we should do as far as the minutes of the meeting, or what do you want us to do going forward for next year?
I don't really know. I mean, on the one hand, if it's the person that I believe in is sort of the prime mover of the addling, and we don't want to stop that. I don't know what action we should take, except that perhaps we wish to condemn this action that was taken, that has been taken for 4 or 5 years in a row.
But they did
without
the
our knowledge.
silencer before.
Yeah.
So the silencer thing was real. That just seems.
Yes. Well, that's what I was told. I'm assuming that Becky's information is correct.
Well, I didn't hear it from Becky. Donna West, the president of LWA.
Well, that's where I heard it from.
Okay.
And my sense is the police is investigating this a little bit too, and I'm sort of vaguely remembering that. So, whatever. I just throw that in there.
Uh-huh.
I think Becky mentioned that to me too. That
Yeah.
Kristen was interviewing
Yes.
people.
But if law enforcement is involved, I don't think we should need to do anything at this point and let that run its due course. I'm just being conservative here.
I agree that we don't need to do anything, but Mark was saying, oh, what are we going to put in the minutes?
Oh, yeah.
We could perhaps just put in the minutes that we are concerned, and I don't know about, I'll put in the minutes that I'm concerned and disturbed, and I don't know how the whole committee feels about it.
I mean, you could simply put in the minutes that you brought it to people's attention because I didn't know this was the case. This is news to me.
Uh-huh.
That would note it.
So the other concern.
I think what, this was upsetting to me too, but I do think we should put something in our minutes that says if indeed they need to shoot geese, what is the proper procedure? That one individual can't call somebody to go do it, and that they appropriately notify the police. And that may be where that has to go through before they go out and actually shoot the geese.
When it was explained that USDA was doing the shooting, I imagined that they were doing it on their own authority for public health or public safety reasons, but that's not the case at all. It was a completely maverick operation.
Now, I agreed in June because there was concern about the goose saddling not happening, that I would take that on and get some help with people that have done it before. I have gotten a couple people who said they would go in there with me because I'm a little leery of the area, afraid of the snakes. But is this the reason that they were shooting? Because the addling hasn't been happening? They've been shooting rather than addle the eggs? does anybody know that?
I don't think that's the case, Tracy. I think the idling's been going on. And historically, we get they find one nest that has been on the island, but there's also nesting that's occurred on Ames Pond. That and so they've asked Ames Pond if they would be willing to, or Kestrel Trust, if they'd be willing to get an idling permit also, and that they would do the work to go in and oil the eggs. But I think the issue is that the geese seem to be more upstream now, where they're not comfortable going. And so the thought is, well, if we can identify where the nests are upstream or in the South Cove, I think then it would be helpful so that they would know exactly where to go to do it.
So that's where I agreed to go, to places that people don't want to go.
Well,
I don't know if I'm the right person for this job.
It's yeah, that's the issue. Yeah, and I don't know for a fact that there is nests up there. I've heard from some kids that they saw nests up there. You know,
Up where, Mark? Upstream or in South Cove?
South Cove, upstream in the South Cove.
Okay.
There's like a little inlet, the water comes down through there, but yeah.
Oh, so you're not talking about upstream in Fisk?
Nope,
Cove.
absolutely not. No,
In the South Cove, one place. Okay.
We've never seen any eggs on that island in the North Cove or farther in, but no one's ever looked upstream. But we do know that.
Oh, so this is just a thought that might be where they are, because you were told by kids. Okay,
That's
which is
right.
probably, I'm
We
sure
do
they
know-
were, you know. I'm
We
sure
do
they
know
were.
that there's nesting occurring around Ames Pond, and the people have seen the geese come literally walk down to the lake. You know, the families of geese. And so,
Where is Ames Pond?
behind your house, up the hill, behind.
Oh, and
You know the Julian Janowitz's place.
yes, I can. Yeah.
And so there was a hope by the guys who do the idling to say, can we add a little more eggs and address the issues that way? I'll think of something to write up, and put it in the minutes here to kind of reflect this discussion.
Tracy, were you able to connect with Rio Windcaller, Tracy?
Repeat that?
Were you able to connect with Rio Windcaller?
No, I'm not really super familiar with next door Shutesbury, so I didn't really know. You said I could find her there, but I actually never tried because I don't do next door.
I know, Rhea. I'll go talk to her, but I highly doubt she's going to want anything to do with addling goose eggs.
No, the idea was to have her show me, not to do it.
Right? And like I said, she probably want to have nothing to do with it, but I'll certainly go have a chat with her.
Okay.
Yeah, I expect you're right about that, Dave.
She's a great gal. So always good to go have a beer with her.
Well, right. Since people are shooting the geese, you might be able to appeal to her on that note. We'd rather addle them than shoot them.
Oh God, I don't even know if I want to tell her.
Yeah.
Surely she must know. She must have heard it
She
too.
probably does.
Okay, anything else? Well, this was a marathon meeting here. I appreciate everyone sticking it out, and I'll try to get together a list of action items and the minutes and get the minutes going a little earlier than last month.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you very
Sounds
much.
good. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Right, well,
Mark and Dave. Well, Dave just stepped off. Are you going to send out an email to the two of us about a meeting, or you want me to send it?
why don't you get coordinated with David? I'll see if I can jump in.
I'll put you in it. Okay.
Okay, great.
Right,
Thank you. All right. Bye all. Thanks, John.
Thank you.